Well, good day and welcome to this ninth in the series of the playlist of our move from our now fully vacated plot to our newly acquired plot, which we acquired, gosh, it's 6 months ago. So this is really going to be a roundup video. It's not going to be showing you what I am doing. It's going to be showing you what has been done. And I'm also just going to talk a little bit about the hours that it has taken, because I've totted up all the hours that it's taken me to do this. And I reckon it's somewhere in the region of about 36 to 40 hours work that has gone into getting it to the state it now is in. Now, you will remember when we originally took it over, it was such a mess. I mean, it really was a mess. I'm just going to show a bit of video now of how it was in September when we found out we were going to be taking it over.
Here. This is going to be our new plot. So let's go along and mark the boundary. So where's the boundary?
Carry on.
Oh, it's larger.
Carry on. There.
Oh wow, so that's... Sorry about the wind noise, people. This is going to be... Oh, it's enormous.
So this is the path that goes up to our top plot. So there's a path on the side.
It's huge. Gosh. And there's a shed.
There's a shed.
Goodness me. There you go. So if I use my finger, it's this whole area here. Right up to the shed, right up to here, all of this. And then of course, for those of you who don't know, this is the top plot, right next door to it.
So there we are. That was Richard and me really having the first look at the plot that we were going to be taking over in October. Unfortunately, the plot holder who had the plot before us had a number of family crises leading up to us taking over the plot, and we didn't get to really get onto the plot fully until the middle of November, so 6 weeks into our tenancy. Then various things were happening. It's a busy time for me in November with so much advertising for various clients. And work didn't really start till I think it was mid-December. But one of the first jobs was strimming and getting everything cleared and taking out perennial weeds, which I did do. This next video just shows very little change really, but some of the planning that I had made. I'd moved 2 of our edge beds from the now vacated plot up to this plot, not the one I'm sitting on, but the one next to us, just so that I could get some sizing and see whether my thoughts on how many edge beds I would get in was correct. And it was largely. So our plot begins just here, goes up to this post which has got a cup on it, then right along behind the shed, then coming behind that green shed which has had a lick of paint. Up front here we're going right along, there's a rose bush, there's a rather decrepit compost bin, and there we are, that's the corner. So the plot goes up behind that shed, and there's about another metre at the side of that shed which we'll have a look at. Right, then we come to these beds. There's a whole host of, well, what is a whole host? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 jiggity beds, not really any rhyme or reason to them, and all of these are going to come out. This one here and here, and this bed here, another one over here. They will come out and we'll reuse the wood somewhere else. There's quite a lot of weeds in here. This is actually, I think, a strawberry bed, though it's got a whole load of weed in it. The artichoke will remain there. I think what we will have in this space is we'll have just get away with possibly a 2.4 long bed, 2.4 meter long bed up to the artichoke, and then 1.2 meters wide. And we will try and do the same on the other side of the artichoke. Along the edge here, we're going to put a flower border. There's already a lavender. This is a lavender here. Just needs a whole lot of weeding. Everything needs weeding and covering. And then what I have done is I've moved two of our beds, edge beds, from the lower area where we're vacating to this top area. So it's my intention that we have two 2.4 meter long beds by 1.2 meter wide beds along here. So that will give a 4.8 by 1.2 meter growing space. And then we'll have a path, and then we'll have another set of beds, a path, and then another set of beds, a path, another set of beds. I hope we'll be able to get 5 sets of long beds in here. We'll definitely get 4, but I hope we'll be able to get 5. Then there is a little pathway already, which takes you to just the side of the shed. This in the middle is a grapevine that we'll be taking out, and we will have a flower border in here, this area, and then this area where my shadow is over at the moment has got quite a lot of raspberry fruit in, and we will be taking that out and giving it a really good clean and then putting it back down. So this is going to be a soft fruit bed. However, because we weren't able to get onto the plot to start work till mid-December, there are 2 areas which are still under vinyl, and I'm going to have to sort those out at the end of this year. They're not going to be sorted out for this growing season. So what I'm going to have to do is just put things in pots and in bags on top of that vinyl for the time being, because there's no way I'm going to be able to sort it. So there is going to be another video after this added to the playlist, but that's going to be the work that I'm going to be doing for next growing season rather than this growing season. So let's just take a quick look at what has been achieved in the last 6 months. As I say, I think it's around 36 to 40 hours of structural changes and getting the beds ready. I think on top of that is another, let's say, 10 hours of tinkering and moving things around, which if you've seen episode 8 of this, you will see there are quite a few changes. This is the plot now. Quite a change. These are the areas, the vinyl here and the vinyl up here, that I'm not going to be able to get around to, though the vinyl is acting as a weed suppressant at the moment, and that will do for the next 6 months, and then we can get to work on that next year. Rhubarb, this one is a rhubarb that was about there on the plot, and this is another small rhubarb that we already had. Right, this is where the old compost bin was. I decided to keep it as a compost area for the time being and put this hexagonal bin in its place. There's also another Dalek next to it. And then in these 2 bins, this is where I've got shredded paper and cardboard that I add to the compost. And this is all perennial weed waste that I just leave in there and let that rot down. Bin. The compost bin, hexagonal compost bin, went up actually pretty smoothly. It was second hand, and we got it free from another plot holder who had it on free cycle a few months ago. We're letting the nettles grow fully around this area, not going to cut those back. They'll be used for comfrey tea and most probably also making some soup. But the rose here did get a really good cut, really good prune. It was flowering in December, which is really intriguing. So it's had a mulch on top of 3 layers of thick cardboard. Actually, what I am going to do is just level that mulch off a bit because you don't want it to go too high up the stalks. In this bag is a whole load of compost from the old pallet compost bin that we're letting rot down for another 4 to 6 months. This is the old pallet compost bin that needs to go to a bonfire at some point. It will most probably be our November bonfire, I think. Right, moving round. So I thought we would get edge beds in here. What we're actually going to be doing now is having a flower border along the edge here once this final is done, and then this will just be a perennial growing area. So we'll have our rhubarb this side, then we'll keep the artichoke there, and then the other side, that's where we're going to have our perennial kale. So that's going to go in. So what I have ended up with is 8 2.4 metre by 1.2 metre beds here. So what that means is that these are 4.8 metres long and 1.2 metres wide. Half of them, I won't go into what's in them, but there's onions and brassicas here. There's some fresh sowings here, which I'll go into in the plot tour when we do it. This one is basically laid bare at the moment. I can't decide whether I'm going to be putting beans or tomatoes into here. I think I will most probably put tomatoes in here and beans in pots or compost bags over there. This was the first bed to be sown. This is where peas went in. Some peas are doing much better than others, and in these at the end here I've had to do a second sowing. Right, so all of these edge beds, sorry for my shadow, all of these edge beds came from the lower plot, and all of the beds that were here have been dismantled, and their legs are in a new store that we've got, and the some of the edges is holding down the vinyl, and others are just for the burn pile when we do have a burn pile. One bed that has remained is this one, which you may remember was the other way up. These legs were partly in the ground, and what we've done is turned it the other way up and moved it right along here to line up, just come around here, with the rest of the beds. You can see that's pretty straight. And this is going to be our soft fruit area. In fact, it is our soft fruit area. But we weren't able to get to Ealing Riding Stables to get more compost, so everything is staying in pots this year. Whereas all of these 3 beds here and these 4 beds here all have compost from Ealing Riding Stables. The taller bed, which is the one that we normally do our roots in, particularly parsnips and carrots, though this one has only got 4 types of parsnips in it this year, that has got very fine compost in it, so it's not the same compost as in the other 7. Then we come on to the flower bed. Let me see if I can get away from my shadow. This is our flower border bed. Looks a bit raggedy at the moment, though what I have done is I've used plants that we already have to set this up. So there's a sort of New Zealand flax which should get really quite tall up here, and oxeye daisies, some feverfew. You can see maybe some pansies down here, and a few forget-me-nots at the front which will self-seed, lemon balm, pulmonaria, calendula. This is a what are they called? The blue ones. Agapanthus, that's what that is. And then there's also just some seeds, wildflower seeds, that have been put in the top. Actually, I don't think they're wildflower seeds. I think they're bee-friendly seeds that have gone in the top. So, yeah, we've got a few flowers, as I say, the violets. You see there, there's a few purple violets in there. And the forget-me-nots. But it'll grow. It'll grow. What I've tried to do is keep taller things in this sort of area at the back, and then other things will grow here, and this will just be an annual bed, if you like, hopefully self-seeding. Right, our other vinyl. At the moment, as I say, it's just acting as a weed suppressant. That's fine. It's also where we're keeping some of our plants. We have a eating apple there. This is a Bramley apple here. From the other plot, we took out comfrey, which is in the bucket in the centre there. And then we have strawberries, which again came from the lower plot. And in this, these are a whole load of buddleia at the back and rosemary at the front, cuttings that we took last year. They're all doing really well. They were going to be going to Hanwell Carnival, but they won't be. Right, one of the first things we did do was paint the shed. So it's a nice sort of green. Let's just close the door. So this shed we didn't think we were going to be left with, but are glad that the plot holder did leave it. So it had some green paint because he left that as well. I've attached a little rack on there for plants to go on. Some are down here just having a good water at the moment before they go back on there. And then what I have done is I've moved this bench. This was our little nursery area. We've moved this bench down from our plot up here next to us to this area. This gets full sun. You can't see it at the moment. You can see the sun just hitting here, but within an hour this will all be in full sun. Lots of different plants on there. Yeah, we'll mostly go into that on the plot tour. I have moved these chairs to this plot, but they really are at the end of their life. You can see that one's got a hole in it. And this table. And this morning, I don't know what that is. Someone left that for us. I know I must know what it is because they must have said, would you like some? Our blueberry hedge. I've repotted our blueberries. So we have 3 pots of blueberries. This was a blueberry that was in the ground just over there behind that ceanothus. And these 4, so 2 in here and 2 in here, were ones that we got from a magazine, one of those sort of pay postage and get free plants versions of things. And then also very lucky, we've now got a wheelbarrow, by the way. Last year we were also given this, which none of you will have seen. It's a plastic store and really useful. This is where I had the bricks, which I've now stacked over there in the corner, you can see, with tiles and things. And this is a really good storage area. So we do actually have a bit of compost which has gone into here as well, bagged compost. So very happy to get this free of charge as well. Again, another plot holder brought it down and asked whether we'd like it. So there we are. That is what the plot looks like after about 50 hours work. So about 36 hours work was sort of thinking about it and the structural side of things, and anything from painting the shed to moving the edge beds to digging the border, the flower border, because I did dig the flower border, and then all the other hours that we've put in are just sort of titivating things really. So getting this in, moving this from where it was by our communal shed. Well, we've now got a solar charger as well, which has been in the shed on the neighbouring plot for years. Oh, and the you can't see it, but that rose is also the rose that I cut back, and yeah, it's doing fine. It's got another mulch like the other one has at the bottom. So yeah, that is the work for this year. Next year, as I say, these areas of vinyl will be dealt with. They'll become further growing areas. Most probably, I've explained what that one will be over there. This one will most probably be a pumpkin patch and a general growing area. Not quite sure what yet, but hey, plenty of time to decide that. Yeah, there we are. Very pleased and much tidier apart from the bits that aren't. So there we are. That's the end of episode 9 in this playlist. As I say, there will be another 1 or 2 videos which are going to be right at the back end of this growing year, and in fact for us into the 2020-2021 growing year, because our growing year starts in October. So much of the work underneath that vinyl will be happening hopefully in October, November, most probably November time. So I'm really pleased with what has been achieved in the last 6 months. It hasn't been easy, but at the same time it hasn't been difficult. I think what I did work out is I broke my the hours, if you like, down into 10 or 11 3 to 4 hour days, and that I found was absolutely fine. I could do 3 or 4 hours of the structural work and then go away, have a rest, and come back another day and do that. So over that period of time, from mid-December to, let's say, the beginning of March, the beginning of March, all of this has actually been structurally sorted. I think it's really important to try and to really think about how you want your areas, your growing areas, structured. Obviously you can chop and change, but making good decisions at this time, early on in your growing experience on a particular plot, is really important. And I suppose I benefited from the plot, knowing what we've done on the plot that I'm sitting on at the moment, which is a bit more higgledy-piggledy, mainly because I've learned as I've gone along. You know, none of what happens here is professional in any way whatsoever, as I'm sure you're quite aware of. So everything has been learnt from my dad or my mum, or learnt as I've grown at community gardens or grown at this allotment. So I think that's why the plot next door is a little bit more organised bed-wise than this one is. Though, would I change this one that I'm on at the moment? I don't think largely I would. There's most probably a few shrubs that I would move because they block light. If we didn't have the pear tree, which is going to be in glorious blossom, I would have thought by the weekend, that would be another growing area for us. But it's such an old such an old apple tree. I don't want to cut it down. Not until it's stopped doing anything, if you see what I mean. I don't mind. I like the tree being there. It gives shade to this area as well. And it's nice to sit under. Right, so yeah, that's it. That's it on this playlist for a good 6 months, I think. We will be doing an April tour, which will be out later this week. And when I do the April tour, I'll go into what type of brassicas we've got planted out and what types of peas and things like that. So yeah, there we are. I hope you've enjoyed this playlist so far, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks very much for watching. If you like what we do, please do subscribe. Bye.